Hello everyone, and welcome back to Taylor Talk. Today we're going to be interviewing a friend of mine's, Brandon, who as a first-time home buyer purchased his home 2 months ago during the COVID market. Brandon and his family accomplished home ownership during a very challenging market where there was COVID restrictions and a very competitive buyer's market. If you haven't already, watch our YouTube video on current market updates for the month of March and April, and this will give you an idea of exactly what Brandon and his family were up against. Welcome, Brandon, and congratulations on new home ownership. What made you buy a house during the pandemic?
I wanted to buy a house because mostly the fact that, well, my kids were getting older and we needed to get a house, needed to get a larger house, and rents and mortgage payments are, especially in Southern California, are basically the same. So it just seemed like a waste of time to be paying money to use a place rather than paying money that we get to save and get back in the end if we decide to sell the home, and we can use as equity for taking out loans to improve the place, and you also get the opportunity to just do what you want to with the place. And I know in the pandemic the demand just kept rising, so I figured it was also a good investment at the same time because housing prices have been increasing even since then. I think my home in only a couple months is already worth about $10,000 more.
When did you start shopping for your house?
We started house shopping, we waited until after the holidays just because we didn't want to add that stress to our lives and just kind of divide it up. So we waited until just after Christmas to start seriously looking in 2020. And then we started looking around on Zillow or Trulia or things like that, and we made contact with like the veterans home loan companies to try to get an idea of kind of where to start and to introduce us to a realtor. And that's when we started.
So Brandon, you went through the VA to purchase your home. How many buyers were you competing against, and what was the process?
I couldn't say. We didn't actually get to, they didn't tell us the total number of people that bid on a home. However, every single place that we looked at or that we put a bid on, we had usually a counteroffer from the seller because of competing bids. And on top of that, homes that we did see that we did like disappeared pretty quickly. So there was a lot of people out there shopping. And as far as viewing the homes, that wasn't really too bad. There's just a lot of extra. Anytime we had to view a home, we had to go get, or we had to sign documents saying that we had no COVID symptoms or things like that. My wife did actually get COVID during the pandemic, and so we had to stop viewing homes for a couple of weeks until she got better, and then we had some negative tests before we could really start looking again.
Okay, so what was involved in your bid? Were there any contingencies or concessions that you had to make? Was the offer below, at, or above?
And our bid for the home that we did eventually get most of it was contingent just on things that were found in the home inspection, things that were like safety issues. Because in Orange County, if you're not buying a house, you're buying a townhome, and those are generally a little older. So there was some safety things, changes in when they were built and what the code was at the time. So we had to get some of those things changed and part of the sale. As far as the time period from the offer being accepted to closing, that was supposed to be the regular 21 days. It ended up running a little longer because the homeowners association where we live required the seller to use a certain company for their termite inspection, which they kind of drug their feet on a little bit getting that taken care of, but that wasn't really our problem, and our realtor was really good in making sure that we weren't penalized in any way for that time. So that's kind of the experience that we had for those.
Okay, so how long did it take to close?
For us, it was supposed to be just about 3 weeks. I think it ended up being just a shade over, about 24 days or so. And most of it was just because of some other things that were kind of being hammered out between the selling agent and our agent. And you just kind of got a bunch of things, random requests from the real estate agent one day saying like, hey, we need to get you, this document from your bank or this document from your employer. I need copies of this, and then you have to kind of run around and find it, make sure you get all that done that day. But other than that, I mean, I thought it was pretty quick, but again, it was my first home, so.
So since closing, have you had to make any repairs, or was there anything overlooked during the home inspections?
One of the things that happened about a month and a half after we got in was the upstairs bathtub leaked into the ceiling and leaked a lot of water downstairs onto the carpet and into the drywall and stuff like that. And so we had to get the drywall taken out, which, because of its age, there was a little bit of asbestos, so we had to get that abated to get the drywall taken out. And then that exposed a huge chunk of ceiling that we then, my wife and I then kind of did on our own to spray for mold. And then we had to get the plumber in to fix the piping, which the cause is that it was the original copper piping from like the 60s. So I guess it just kind of rotted through and we didn't know about it, and that's what happens, I guess. So we're still actually in the process of fixing that, and then just recently we kind of came home to find our refrigerator wasn't on, and that was because whoever did the wiring in the house bundled some cables near some outlets in the kitchen, and that caused, it kind of bypasses like the circuit breaker panel for protection, and it overheated the wires in the outlets that kind of fried the outlets. And so we had to get an electrician in there to come in there, and it didn't have that little press button that you have on some outlets that protect from power surges. So we had to get some of those installed. It would have been helpful to know a little more about like the code or like kind of more current norms in homes. And so we're learning. Luckily, we were really stingy and saved up a lot to have for repairs, just because I didn't want to have to have like a make or break event in our lives. So we've been okay for so far. But yeah, we had a few things.
Thanks again, Brandon, for joining us today. It is always a pleasure. Thank you again for sharing your first-time home buyers experience with us and all the other viewers out there. Viewers, if you found this information helpful in any way, please like it, leave a message below. You can contact us by calling, emailing, or visiting www.taylormiltonhomes.com. Thanks again. We'll see you again soon.